This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. We are doing our preview of the 2025-26 NBA regular season, and we're all the way down to the bottom.
Oh, no.
I know. I mean, listen, every NBA season has to have their decrepit teams, their garbage teams, their basement teams, their G League teams, their tank teams. It seems like it's not always easy to figure out as the season goes in how many teams are going to be god awful, but I feel really confident, and we agreed on it after we talked about it before we wrote up our previews, that we think it really comes down to 4 teams, 3 of which are in the same conference.
It comes down to, and what I think is getting worse and worse and worse is we're getting to the point now, and we have for the last few seasons, where we know the teams aren't going to even try. It's not you just have a bad team. We know, like, you're already pre-tanking, and it's already a foregone conclusion.
And it's not even GM incompetence. This is actually GM competence. The competence is you don't spend a lot on the cap. So when you look at the cap number, you know, oh, these teams aren't trying to be good. And we'll get to the 4 teams, but when we talk about their cap status, like, it's obvious. But also, no superstars to speak of other than maybe one, and just completely devoid of hope. Like, at least over the last couple of years, like, there hasn't even been a hint of, wow, maybe things are looking up. Like, there has been nothing of the sort for them. I've actually been calling them the Tanktastic Four, because I feel really confident that these teams will finish with less than 30 wins.
Well, we got one team I think is poised to make their way out of this group, but the rest, like, there's no incentive for them to do. Everybody is just copying that mid-2010s Philadelphia 76ers playbook of let's just be as bad as we can. Let's get as many picks as we can. And how did that work out for them? It really didn't.
We've had this philosophical conversation for years. I felt like it did, but it was much later than they intended. That's how I feel about that.
It all comes down if you hit on your picks. Awesome. Philly got 2 of the 3 top picks, and they had top 3 picks for how many years in a row?
2 All-Stars, yeah.
Yeah, and if you trade up for number 1 to get Markelle Fultz and he's a complete bust, that just sets you back. And a lot of these teams have had bad drafting history.
And a lot of these teams have had multiple draft picks over the last 2 years. And they're on these teams right now that we're previewing them, but we haven't seen the results yet. Likely because I don't have the numbers in front of me, because there are some veterans on toiling, toxic contracts that got dumped there, because these are also dumping grounds in the NBA, these teams. But it feels like these are the youngest teams in the league.
Outside of Oklahoma City, I would imagine these are the 4 youngest teams. And again, perennial. We have the same. I remember when we started this 12 years ago, Orlando was always in this group because they had a rebuild.
And they were drafting well. Yeah.
And they had to rebuild the rebuild. So when you have to scrap your already scrap plans and you really don't have a clue, it just makes for a painful time for the fan bases of all these groups.
And as painful as it is, let's talk about them. Let's talk first about the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay. I have qualms with everybody. I have issues with the reviews and the grading.
With everybody? You have qualms with me too?
Like, well, I don't know what you're. We'll see where you fall on this. When I read over summarizing the off-season grades and whatnot, Brooklyn got like D's and C minuses, and you have to ask yourself, what were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to spend a ton of money?
Where's the lure? Who's gonna go there? You know,
it's not that they're the team has money. So you're implying they would have gotten an A if they gave a crazy bid for Kaminga and Grimes and just been this really mediocre team? They're kind of the lack of free agency this past year gave them no incentive to do so. Now,
Yeah.
using all 5 of your picks, that's a debatable strategy we will get into
Yeah.
shortly. But what were they supposed to do? They weren't good. They're not going to, if you spend all your money on those restricted free agents or you make a Godfather offer for a Desmond Bain, how good can you possibly be? You're not going to
Yeah.
shoot yourself into the upper echelon anyways. So
If
all you're
you're
going to
the
have is just Chicago Bull status.
if you're the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, Joe Tsai, and then of course, obviously the guy who he has as his GM, Sean Marks, if you're running that organization, you went for it in 2019 and in 2021. You got Durant and Kyrie in a coup, and then you got James Harden in a mega trade. It didn't work out. It blew up in your face. And I can understand the hesitation to go for it again. Like, say, for example, they got some Godfather offer to get Zion Williamson from the Pelicans. Well, even if they got offered it, would you take it? Like, because once you do that deal, that's it. That's the deal where it's like, okay, we're going for it. This is our guy.
But
And
that's it.
I
If they
understand the hesitation.
but if they got Zion, Kaminga, and let's say Giddy, and they had like two firsts left, it's just like
Is that a good enough team? You
no.
know,
So
that's the
what
thing.
I the unrealistic expectations of everybody, like they're gonna be bad. The drafting 3 point guards is
Talk about in the draft.
in the draft, they got 3 point guards. It's very unorthodox, but how many draft picks hit anyways? So why not just hope, the odds are one of those three might be somebody. So
Yeah.
let's just here's the three we like. They'll competition amongst themselves.
The five players, I'll just list them really quickly. Igor Demon, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, Ben Seraph, and I believe the last one was Danny Wolf.
Danny Wolf,
Um,
who you liked.
Yeah, he's just a big man who can shoot threes. I can see him having a future. Traor's obviously from France. He's going to take a while. Seraph, I'm not sure, but they're all coming over. All five of them are going to play. Um, I do want to talk a little bit postmortem about the team. Jordy Fernandez is the coach. He coached Team Canada in the Olympics. I don't think he's a bad coach at all. Like they actually overachieved a couple times early in the year when they had Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell, Nick Claxton was playing regular minutes. Like it just seemed like they actually were slightly competitive.
That's
Then
why
they made the moves.
that's why I think it goes into the strategy of keeping all five people, since Fernandez, like you said, play the Canadian team, who aren't the most powerhouse. They don't get the best play. So you have developmental focus. The only problem I was worried about last year with them was sort of the regression of Nick Claxton. He had every reason to be a beast, and he wasn't.
His he was a 10 points, 7.5 rebounds. You would want him to be like a 10 rebound per game guy.
He seemed to have taken a step back, and with nobody else on that team, he should have been feasting for on
And
everything.
they didn't really have bigs to back him up. I mean, they were already thin as it is, but their other bigs. Zaire Williams to me is not a big. He's more of like a small forward, and he got rewarded for having an okayish season, probably his best as a NBA player. He got a contract, like 2-year contract. Noah Clowney, he had good moments, but I see him as more like a stretch. And then Day'Ron Sharp. Day'Ron Sharp is just okay, but they didn't really
Daron
have.
Sharp and Jair Williams, who they got off, Jair Williams, they picked up the scrap heap. They were nice and serviceable. Their bench isn't. You look at it, and it's like, well, they can
Oh, I mean,
sell
they
those
were
pieces off. They're
competitive
decent.
in the tank months when teams were not trying as hard because they were DNPing for the playoffs. They were playing okay. Jalen Wilson, sorry, Keon Johnson. They even picked up Drew Timmy as a two-way, and he busted out a couple times. So they were able to get production out of guys, albeit in losing efforts. Like they were still awful. They were 4-13 in the month of March, and they were 2-14 in the month of January. So I mean, clearly something wasn't working.
No, and we're just gonna have a lot of more of not working because you're gonna have all rookies and they're all gonna make mistakes, and we saw that last year with Washington, who just was too young
And
because
we have
they're
to bring up the Cam Thomas situation. So he barely played last year because he had some sort of a hamstring issue. In the games he played, he averaged 24 points a game. That was the highest he had. He was a restricted free agent. they hard lined him on his extension, and he signed the tender. That means he's an unrestricted free agent in 26. Do you think that the Nets made a calculated risk, like a good risk?
I think the Nets. I don't know what the Nets strategy. I definitely
I
know
think they slightly underestimated his ability, but
they
they
didn't
could not commit
underestimate
to
his
him.
ability, but they just said you're just an empty calorie stat
That's
guy.
what I'm saying. They could not
You're
commit to him as a star
what
guard.
we you're not worth 30 million because all you do is shoot threes. And we have I'm blanking on the guy, the name of the guy, but he's in Milwaukee now. Who Gary Trent Jr.
Mhm.
How is he any different than him? He just shoots threes and doesn't do anything else. And Gary Trent makes 3 million.
Yeah.
So you're not worth, and everything is always Emmanuel Quickly money. Like how I want Quickly money, and they're like, we'll offer you 2 years, 24 million. Okay, I'll just take the six. But
Mhm.
since you drafted four guards, we have no, as the Brooklyn Nets, we have no impetus to play him. We can't trade him because he has a no trade clause. All we know, he would be dumped to a team, just for
Oh,
parts.
yeah,
So
I
it,
could see a scenario where a team wants to give him the money after he shows his like because he's in a prove it mode, so he's going to play as many games as he can. And if a team likes him, then they'll swing a deal, and then they'll give him an
but
extension
I can't
after
see,
the
like,
deal.
let's say Minnesota dumps spare, they need to dump salary to him. He's not going to waive his no trade clause to go there when there's play when Anthony Edwards is in front of him. He's not gonna get 30 million there. He's not gonna well, we'll dump you to, we'll say, Washington. He's not gonna go there because he knows he's not gonna play. Like there's no
He's got the opportunity, obviously, to play here, even with all the draft picks that they had at the guard spot, picking up Haywood Highsmith from Miami because they had to get under the tax. Those are guards, but Cam will likely start ahead of them. He's been a
I
six man
don't know what
before.
he'll be because you have all these players you need to develop. Cam Thomas has no future in Brooklyn. So why would you want to play him knowing
I think he's the most talented guard they have, and he demands double teams. So Jordy's gonna want to
that
play him.
was his defense? Is if I'm so bad, how come I have double teams? Like, well, but you can't do anything else. You don't pass and you don't play
Yeah.
D. We need you to do at least one
And
of
and
those.
those weren't even the biggest moves. The biggest moves for Brooklyn at the end were actually at kind of at the three spot. It was they picked up Terrence Mann in a multi-team trade. A good player. Um, I think in Atlanta, he was not able to play a lot because of the fact that they had a lot of wings on that team. And then they got Michael Porter Jr. in exchange for Cam Johnson. Now, Cam Johnson is younger and his 3-point shooting is better than Michael Porter Jr.'s. Porter's had injury issues. He has a really big contract, but it does have an early termination option after this season. So it's not the worst deal for Brooklyn. But do you think Mike MPJ can have some good moments in Brooklyn?
I mean, there's no reason he can't be the scoring champion if he wants to be.
I
Like,
don't see
what?
that. I can see him averaging over 20 for sure,
But
but I
I'm
don't see
saying, but no, I mean, who's gonna if he wants to take 40 shots? Who's gonna say no on that team? Like, there's nobody else.
I've seen this guy potentially have triple doubles. Talking about Michael
He's
Porter Jr.
good, and I believe he will be flipped somewhere at the trade deadline because he is valuable. It was a shrewd move by Denver, and here's an unprotected first. We need to get cheaper and younger, and we'll get Michael Porter Light and
Yeah.
Cam Thomas. But I don't this year with Brooklyn, going back to them, I don't even know what their starting lineup's going to be because you said Cam Thomas
I think
will
Thomas will
be
start at guard.
the de facto starting guard. I don't. Why not Terrence Mann? I be Demon Mann, Jair Williams, Michael Porter, and Claxton. I
It's a ragtag group. I mean, this is why they're
Dayron
here.
Sharp is a nice, solid backup. Haywood Highsmith has been a solid backup. Well, he was injured last year, but he's been a solid backup for Miami.
Hmm.
Clowney, it's a prove it year for him because it's year three, and Dariq Whitehead's pretty much. I don't.
Whitehead, this is the year where he has to prove something. He was a first round pick from Duke. He just hasn't done anything.
He hasn't done anything, and like I said, you have five guards, and you have four guards. And you have Cam Thomas. That's
Yeah.
five bodies in front of you.
And
There's
Jordy loves Keon Johnson. They picked him up, I believe, from Portland, and he just played a lot in the tank months. So I got a feeling he'll be in the rotation. What's their number in terms of wins?
So
over
Brooklyn,
under.
Brooklyn started at 21.5, and that slid down to 20.5.
Mm.
So the over and under on Brooklyn is 20.5.
That
I
means you
will,
think they're going to lose 60 games or more. That's a lot of losses.
I am going to say over because they are going to be playing the same speed they always are, and then teams are going to be start tanking at the end of the year. They're going to get some easy wins in
Yeah, but
March
they
and
might.
April.
Yeah, but Brooklyn, I'll go under because I think Brooklyn might uber tank. Like they might actually trade Porter because of that ETO, and teams will be willing to take him on. So and they might not even have Porter by the trade deadline. And I'm saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying it's possible. They had 26 wins last year, so you're anticipating they'll be worse than they were last year. And I mean, we saw this with Will Hardy in Utah, another team we'll talk about later, where they actually were competitive his first year coaching there,
They
and
were too
then
competitive.
he finally got the clue from management of like, hey guys, we actually need to lose games, not win games.
You got to lose
And
games. You got to start finding these
and I
fake
wonder
injuries
that's
for
what's going to happen
people.
with
And
Shorty in Brooklyn, where it's like, okay, guy, we got to. I understand you're proving you can coach. Well, that's fine. You can coach here when we get good, but we
but
need to lose
being 20
games.
wins still puts you in the bottom four.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're going to win 25 or 30 games. I'm just saying over 20 and a
Yeah.
half.
I mean,
That's
that's
all.
safe. That's safe. I mean, 20 and 62 is not I know it sounds crazy. It's not easy to achieve. Like you have to really be just the absolute bottom, the pit of the NBA in order to do that. Do I think like this is the worst of the four? I actually don't. I like their coach. I think Thomas will play a lot, and I think he will pop off and have 40 or 50-point games every now and then. And I'm curious to see Michael Porter Jr. without a leash. How hard do you really want to play now that you don't have expectations on you? All right, Adam. Let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. They got a new coach in Charles Lee. They had they kind of had they had bad moments overall, but it really went down in the month of December when they went 1 for 11. LaMelo Ball was on pace to probably win the scoring title or be in the hunt for it with Shea and Giannis, and then he shut himself down in the All-Star break.
And he's just always injured, and they have the
Do
question, well,
you
what do you?
believe that he was in trade rumors?
I believe everybody is in trade rumors.
Okay, I said it wrong. Do you believe that secretly the Charlotte was shopping him?
No, I don't think Charlotte was actively shopping him, but everybody's in trade rumors. It's always, well, what would you give for me hypothetically? The same thing with as we've learned
Well, if
last
there's a
year.
time to do it now, it's now. It's at this point because
But
he's a
as we
34
learned
per game
last
scorer.
year, LA was just sitting there. They get a phone call, ring ring. Hey, well, what would you give us for Luca? What? What would you give us AD for Luca? So everybody's on there. It's just a lot of, we'll say, superstars are virtually untouchable. But if somebody came to you saying, I'll give you, let's say, Luca for AD, okay.
I
If
wouldn't
Milwaukee
call
calls,
Lamelo. I would not call Lamelo Ball a superstar.
I
I,
wouldn't
I
either. But if somebody called up saying, you know what, we'd give you, we see you, you got all your picks still. We said, give
is
us,
Lamelo Ball a good player? Absolutely. He's one of the best scorers in the league.
is he though?
He's
Or
just he's just in
is he,
terms of running an offense, he's so unproductive.
is the sample size so low we can't get a continual? I mean, any player, if you just played 20 games and that then you burn out, anybody I think can, any superstar can do that, but his body has just been unable to respond
And it's ankle
year
problems,
in,
just like his
year
brother
out.
Lonzo. You really wonder if the big baller shoes is what did it. You start to wonder now because two brothers have had the same injuries, knee and ankle problems.
But are they
Maybe
exact same injuries, or is it just genetics?
I don't know. It's hard to say. But he, 25 points at the end. 5 rebounds, 7.5 assists. So you look at that, man, what this awesome guard. He passes and scores. I'm like, not if you watch the games. Like a lot of those are like empty calorie assists where he just kind of tosses it because he's double teamed.
Correct. They are
Yeah.
down by 30, and then all of a sudden he goes off continuously.
Launches from the 3-point line. They actually, this is crazy, Adam. They had 2 guys average almost 4 made threes a game, him and Brandon Miller. I'm a fan of Miller, even though his field goal percentage is almost exactly the same as LaMelo's, but I think his upside is higher.
Well, Brandon Miller has kind of slid from a small ball 4 to like almost a shooting guard.
Yeah,
Kind
like
of.
a supersized 3 or a
Yeah,
supersized 2. Yeah.
he's changed positions slightly. Okay, looking at Charlotte overall, our postmortems, you said give me one little bullet point for them they need to do, and I'm
Mhm.
like, they need to find shooting guards. Their spacing is terrible. They can't shoot threes. So what do? They get rid of all their centers and get all shooting guards.
Mhm.
Like, no, you went too far the other way. Their front court is maybe the
Mason
worst
Plumlee.
in the league.
Uh,
I
Phoenix is really bad, but I
Who?
understand what you Phoenix is really bad.
No. Phoenix has Phoenix has Charlotte's ones, and they got Cayman
Mark Williams,
Malawak.
yeah. But no, yeah, Grant Williams who tore his I think he tore his ACL. But I would assume he'll be ready because that was
He'll be
very early in
back,
the year.
but he's 6'6", so he's not a center. All
They
you
had a
have,
two-way guy in Musa Diabate who
Musa
kind of
Diabate, the kid they drafted from Creighton,
to
and
yeah.
Plumlee. That's their centers. That is not good at all.
Mhm.
With that said, like you mentioned, Brandon Miller, you have LaMelo Ball for 40 games, kind of. And then you got Trey Mann, who bet on himself and then got injured quite early. So
He got a bridge extension though.
that's one. You somehow swindled Utah, and you got Colin Sexton as your half a season starting point guard. That's a lot better. When you said LaMelo
The
doesn't run
The
offenses,
thing that's interesting about Colin Sexton is that he's actually a good field goal percentage guy because he doesn't take a lot of threes. He kind of like plays behind under the 3-point line. That's where he likes to get to the rim and he likes to attack, but he's not really a passer. But I think he could fit okay in Charlotte.
I think he's going to fit perfectly in
And
because
I think Dinwiddie will fit well too.
you said LaMelo doesn't know how to run plays. He just shoots threes. And here you got two guys who will come in. Dinwiddie's on the obviously the tail end of his
Absolutely.
run, but they are both nice, straight, pure point guards who will.
And Miles Bridges is just a very good NBA forward.
Miles Bridges is just sort of the empty calorie king.
He is, but he is good at what he
He's
does.
good, but does he make the team better? Does he?
No.
Is his plus minus rating, is all his advanced metrics good? No.
Yeah.
He's just sort of there, and he's at the end of his deal, so I can imagine them being flipped. What also worried me is last year they reached for Tijan Saloon, and then now he's going to be buried by Con Canoopel, who's probably going to be the starting 3, and you got Liam McNeely, and now him, and then Brandon Miller, all sort of the same size, and then
I see
Bridges for now.
Salon. It's been a small sample size for him after his rookie year last year, but I see Salon more as like a big man. But it depends on where his skills go from here in his second year. You expect the jump. I will say this about Canoopel. I wasn't sure about him in summer league. He looked good, so I wonder if how quickly he can actually take the one spot if Ball is injured and Canoopel just looks good. And they just say,
you think you're gonna have him be the point guard?
yes.
No.
Like I can see a scenario where they just say, we are really happy with how he runs the offense. And then the offseason next year, they start thinking about moving Ball.
No, I think that's what Sexton is for, and Canoopel always is gonna be the 2 when you have Miller as the 3.
Yeah. You also have Connaughton, who Milwaukee dumped. He's at the end of his rope too in terms of his age. He can help. He's a good 3-point shooter.
He'll probably be bought out at the end of the deadline.
Kalkbrenner, I actually was a fan of Kalkbrenner in college, so I think he'll actually wind up on the roster. And KG Simpson, a lot of people know him as the guy who damn near killed Jalen Wells on a breakaway, but they like him. They played him a lot.
So they
Uh,
have a team. They don't, on paper, they seem to be poised to get themselves out of this group. Because you can't, what are you going to
I
do
would agree with
again?
that.
Like, how bad would it be if they are that bad again and you have a top three pick where you're out of positions to keep filling because your talent is too young, and this rebuild would be have to be scrapped because it
Yeah,
just
well,
failed.
and it would start with having to move Lamelo. I think Brandon Miller is 100% in the fold. They're going to give him a rookie max or a rookie extension of some sort. I think his future is fine in Charlotte. I'm just not sure about Bridges. I'm not sure about Ball. I'm still not sure about Sexton. Like I could see him just doing a whole lot of moves and blowing it up. But I do agree with this in terms of their talent level. They actually have the highest potential to do better than what the projections are going to say for the wins. Also, they're the most expensive of the four teams. Like they're at their roster is at 180 million because LaMelo Ball is on a max deal and Bridges is on a sizable deal and Grant Williams is on a sizable deal. So they actually spent the most among these four teams.
Correct. And by spending the most of these four teams, Vegas is the highest on them.
Okay.
They started off at a paltry 24 and a half, which rose to 25 and a half, and then continued to rise to 26 and a half. And do I dare take the over on them?
You can. I'm gonna still go under on this one. The second time in a row in this group I've done it, but I'm still gonna go under. They won 19 games last year. I can see him loop. I can see him winning 20 games again. But again, the upside is higher than all the others, so it's
Their
a risk.
upside is there, and they seem ready to finally come out of it. So,
And it's the second year with Lee, so he's gonna want to play defense. And their defense was ahead of their offense. Their offense was like they were like second to last in points per game, second to last in offensive efficiency, last in field goal percentage. They never got to the free throw line. Like their offense is terrible. Like I don't know if Sexton's gonna be able to cure that by himself. You know,
but again, they were able to swindle Utah, which is, I want to say, very difficult because Utah is very, very picky with their draft picks and very, for lack of better terms, I don't understand why they'd have to give out the better player and
again,
the pick.
it's
And
all about Ball. It's all about Ball. Like, what do they think of him? How much do they value him?
kind of it, yeah, it comes down to his health. I know it. But they have been drafting well this past
I
draft.
agree with that. I agree. Their drafting has been okay. I know you weren't fond of the Salon pick.
No, I was fond of it based solely on it made San Antonio give up their second pick. And in order for San Antonio to give a pick who was notoriously, until recently, known for scouting foreign players extremely well, and they reportedly wanted him, it tips you off like there might be
and
something
and
there.
they,
But
and to be fair, they have had guys that have gone far in the playoffs on separate teams. Plumlee, Dinwiddie, Josh Green, Grant Williams. Like these are players who have actually like either gone to the finals or knocked on the door of the finals as reserves. So you just hope a winning attitude can cultivate on the team. I would bet against it, to be quite honest. Okay, Adam, let's talk about the Washington Wizards. This is a team that just seems to be rebuilding every single year. It's almost like they're rebuilding, then they don't like the idea, then they rebuild again. Year after year. It's like a rebuff.
they're rebuilding. However, this is the downfall of having so many picks is you're just playing all these young players and there's no, it's hard to
And the
get
veteran contracts they bring in are just the stowaways that they wind up moving anyways, and so there's no continuity.
correct. So they're at this cross point of we have a billion developmental players. They got so many like players under rookie contracts still.
Some good, we'll talk about them.
And then you make trades, salary cap trades to get CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton, which is fine and good. However, those two guys are going to take away minutes from those developmental players.
Middleton has had so many injury issues. I would be stunned if he even played the whole season. I would be stunned.
At the start.
Yeah.
At the start, you think he's going to get minutes.
McCollum actually is good at avoiding injuries, so I think he'll actually play most of the season.
Okay,
A
so
veteran
who do you
too.
want to? Who shall we take first? Let's take McCollum.
Mhm.
McCollum, who they shipped out Jordan Poole for, knucklehead Jordan Poole. CJ will come in. He's going to teach these young guys great. However, you got Trey Johnson you just drafted. Where is he going to play if you have CJ McCollum in front of you? Bub Means Trey's not a pure point guard, so Bub needs to stay at the point.
Yeah,
Bub
Carrington. Yeah.
You got Koulibaly at the small forward, so he's not going to play at the 3.
He was injured a lot last year, so we didn't get to really see him in his second year.
But we're gonna get to him in a second, as he's sort of the linchpin of this team. So you have CJ taking away Trey Johnson's minutes. You got Middleton. Well, he's healthy, going to start him. But you got Kaishan George. You got Cam Whitmore. You got Corey Kispert. And we mentioned Bilal Koulibaly right there as well. Where all those guys can't play on the floor together. There's not enough minutes for all of them. And so how are you going to have this big open competition where you have Kispert, who wasn't drafted by this regime, but they like him. He's been...
Yeah, they signed him to an extension. He's a good three-point shooter. That's his reputation.
He's been sort of the most solid, consistent player on this team.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to see what Kaishan George can do. Do we need to give up on him? Is he going to make that development? We got Cam Whitmore, who's a very intriguing piece, who just couldn't fit in the depth of Houston, which is the same problem Houston had. Houston had too many young people. So where are they going to all get it? And then we got Sarr, which was the number 1 pick.
Sarr finally started. So Sarr really struggled shooting percentage wise, really all year, but he started really coming around in like the last couple months. They have an award called the Rookie of the Month per conference, and I believe Sarr won it the last 2 months. So he actually really started to show that number 1 pick flair.
Number 2
down
pick.
I'm sorry, yeah, right. Number 2.
I got caught up.
Riza Shea was the number 1, but he started showing that top end talent at the end. He averaged a block and a half a game, 6.5 rebounds. He can make threes, so he does have that unicorn ability.
What is problematic about that is he only shot, I believe it was like 28%.
39% from the field, 31% from 3.
31% from 3. It was Koulibaly who was 20-something% from 3, which is...
That's right, 28.
Yeah, he was the 28. So you got... And Sarr shot 5 threes a game. That's not what I want my center to do.
This team was bad from the get-go. They were giving everybody opportunities. That's why Bub Carrington got a lot of minutes and got Rookie of the Year looks, because of the fact that he just got a lot of minutes. They had, this is crazy, Adam, November, 0-14. January, 1-16. However, they did in the tank months of March and April. They actually didn't do the worst. Like, they actually started to win a couple of games. They even beat Denver twice, which is just a miracle. But a lot of people contribute that to, I know not everyone's a fan of Jordan Poole. As a Pelicans fan, that's sad to say. But he did have good moments when he was the star guard for Washington.
Well, he found sort of a calling as the backup when they moved into the second unit, and he was just there. Then they moved him back up because
Brian Keefe, their head coach, he was just playing around with the lineup.
Yeah, but he responded to the downgrade again and whatnot. However, as I had mentioned, there are currently 10 players on this team under rookie contracts still. That is way too many to have, because majority are not going to pan out.
To be fair, we said this about the Thunder about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm not saying they're going to win the NBA title in 2 years. I'm just saying, like, they do have blown up salaries that get them kind of right close, like a little bit close to that first apron, which is they were hard capped at anyway because of trades. But they did the buyout for Rashawn Holmes. They bought out Marcus Smart. You got the Middleton contract, which is 33 mil. You got the McCollum contract, which is 31 mil. So you do have some blown up
They
salaries
got
that they don't
pieces
plan to keep.
to give to teams who will be desperate to get under.
Right.
However, you have that, and then as we mentioned with Brooklyn, so if you get another top 5 pick, you just keep pushing this rebuild down because now you're pushing out your former. I mean, you have Koulibaly, who was, I believe, the 6th, 7th, or 8th pick. Sarr was the 2nd. You have Trey Johnson, who's going to eventually be the starting 2 guard. He's the 6th pick. You have too many high picks in there, and you keep having high picks. You can't keep this cycle going forever, and that's why I said the lack of shooting.
Just hoping that the savior comes. Now, Orlando did this, and the savior finally came in Paulo Banchero. So you just kind of think, well, this is the best approach, and maybe like I don't know who it would be. I guess AJ DeBenza, or I forget the name of the Kansas guard, Darren Peterson. Like if it's one of those guys, maybe he's the savior. But Trey Johnson, a lot of people felt once that pick was done, it's like, oh, that's a good pick. He kind of fell to them. So I wonder if he's going to get more minutes than people expect. What
He's going to
else?
get rookie of the year vibes early
They
on because
also
he's going to
got
play.
Will Riley, Jameer Watkins. We'll see what they can do. AJ Johnson was a steal. That was just because it was a guy that was in the G League out of high school. Milwaukee picked him on a flyer and they dumped him with Middleton. But Johnson actually looked good when he got playing time in Washington.
Yeah, and that was the problem with Milwaukee. You need to hit on these. With any team, you need to hit on these picks, and you can't give up on them 3 quarters into your first season,
And we
especially
didn't
if
mention Malachi Branham going there after he was cut by San Antonio, and then Dylan Jones got dumped by the Thunder. So
too
he
many people, few minutes to go around.
it is a bit. I agree. It's a bit of a mishmashed roster. It's been that way since they traded Beal. What's their over under on wins?
20.5, and I am gonna go solidly under on
I'll go
this.
over only because I can see Sarr taking a nice leap in the second
So
year.
you think they're gonna be better than Brooklyn?
Yes, because I think Brooklyn's just gonna totally, utterly, completely tank. And actually, Washington will have a little bit of pressure on them to try. Just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit of
Fair
pressure.
enough.
I mean, they had 18 wins last year, so going under is safe. If you expect them to be as bad as they were last year and the line is 20.5, well, then you go under because they won less than 20 games. And I think they won less than 20 games the year before that. So it's not the worst. It's actually a pretty safe pick to go under. I'll go into the danger zone. I'll go over because once they move Middleton and McCollum, which I do think will happen at the deadline, they might actually get okay players in return that actually might win them games.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but it's also possible they'll just get 2 firsts or 5 seconds.
I also have to play this game between San Antonio and Washington where I can't remember which Champagny is on the team between Justin and Julian.
Well, the good news is the way this season has gone and the way the depth charts are looking, you're going to see neither of them. As where can Champagne play behind all the people I said?
Mm-hmm.
It's not it.
I can see Whitmore getting a lot of minutes.
Where over whom? They're all competing and there's too many. There's a fine line between getting developmental talent and then just making your whole team. They look like they look like our expansion draft, what we did. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City left Dylan exposed. We'll take him. Houston left Cam Whitmore exposed. We'll take him. Oh, Pelicans exposed. McCollum.
Yeah.
Well, we need salary, so we'll get him.
Well,
They're
well,
all
the
just
other
people.
the other thing too is though I don't think they're going to be a dumping ground next year, despite all the rookie contracts, because they already did buyouts for Smart. So I don't think they're going to be in a position to want to take on heavy contracts for playoff teams that want to get better. I think this
know.
is the team. I think this is the team, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not think you would be that high on them, but apparently you're.
I'm
Oh,
not high on them. I'm just slightly higher than 20 wins. That's it. That's it.
Johnson, I'm completely high. Like I said, that's the pick fell to him. It was supposed to be Ace Bailey, that was the reason the teams want to go there was, well, I can be the star here. I can be the focal point, and he can shoot. He was one of the great shooters in the
And they're
draft.
gonna have so much cap room. They're just like Brooklyn. They're gonna have so much cap room in 26. They're gonna get somebody free agency.
But we're not talking about we're talking about the slog of this season where we have to sit through them because they're going to be the early game, and it'll be at some point you're going to get an injured Philly with nobody on their roster versus Washington, and you're going to have to watch Toronto, who's been terrible, and they're all injured with Washington, and then you're going to have to watch Brooklyn, who's Brooklyn, play Washington, and then your Pelicans, who are already all injured, play Washington. Like you're gonna have to like watch these games, and I
This
don't.
it's gonna be buried in League Pass. Like I don't think you're gonna see them on Amazon Prime or Peacock anytime soon.
Well, it's a highlight league. You don't need to actually watch the games,
That's
and I
true.
think he
That
was
is
referring about them.
unfortunately there's not a lot of highlights in Washington anyway.
No, but they need to find like I don't outside of Trey Johnson, I don't know where their shooting will come,
Mhm.
and maybe Kaishan George can because he kind of stepped up at the end of the year, but they need this team doesn't look to be, for lack of better terms, fundamentally sound.
If Koulibaly can establish himself in the 3 spot or even dare say the 4 spot with Sar, I'll feel a little more hopeful, but there's just not a lot of hope there. All right, Adam, let's talk about the Utah Jazz. Ugh. It's so weird because when Markkinen got moved there, they actually he was an all-star. They were competing with Will Hardy as the coach. Then they made a couple of then they swung some deals where they wound up getting worse. And it has just been 2 straight seasons of just absolute molasses in Utah. And you hope it gets better. Their draft pick of Ace Bailey was a good pick, but then you look at the rest of the roster around Markkinen and you're just like, what is this?
Well, that was the problem is they got dumping grounds, and you got
Mhm.
Colin Sexton from Cleveland, and then you get John
Well,
Collins from
they were
Atlanta.
they're the one who took the Russell Westbrook contract when they bought him out a couple
Yeah,
years ago. Yeah.
and the problem was they played too good and they played too hard, where they now had to strip parts from them. And well, we'll have Trader Danny give me a pick for anything, and keep giving me picks, and um, Walker Kessler is part of the Rudy Gobert trade.
This is the musical chairs of the NBA
And
where
then
this is
he
where you advance.
immediately tries to sell him. And we're on year 4 of the Walker Kessler era. We don't know what he is. B, we don't know his value. C, we don't even know if he's a part of Utah's core. And the problem with Utah is they tore everything down. The Connolly, Mitchell, Gobert trio
They
reached their
dismantled.
glass ceiling. They got as
Mhm.
high as they could. They stripped it apart. They sold high on everybody. However, they didn't draft. There's no pieces they got from that. Like, name me one player they drafted or they got in anything on replacement value. I mean, one player.
I can't because they haven't had one. The only Here's the saddest part. I think the best developmental draft pick they've had up to this point was Kyle Filipowski, a second round pick from Duke. You know, they
Exactly.
and then, Bryce Sensabaugh, ugh, Isaiah Collier, he got a lot of minutes when he played. So there were some people who thought, oh, here's a hopeful point guard. His plus minus was decrepit. Like this is not an NBA starting point guard. He's not a second string NBA point guard. You
Taylor
know,
Hendricks, they were high on, but then he got injured like
he
9 or
broke his
10
leg in
games
the first
in.
week of the
Yeah,
season.
and
Yeah,
Markkinen was great, but then well, we have tape on him. Now we're just going to double team him. Of course, his numbers are going to go down because he's literally the only guy left.
He was so
Keontae
good that
George.
when the Warriors were thinking about trading for him, they shut him down. Like he was in the fucking witness protection program, just like John Collins was.
Keontae George made, they were poised high on him. He didn't step up his second year. You drafted Cody Williams, who had an abysmal rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
Collier, like you said, got minutes, but didn't take advantage of them. You have Walker Kessler. We don't know what he is. And then we mentioned their roster was so mishmashed.
I know what Kessler is. He's a great rebounder and a great shot blocker. So if Utah doesn't want to give him rookie extension money, someone will.
So you have Collier, who's already looking over his shoulder at Clayton, who was drafted out of Florida in the late first round. You got Markkanen going, well, I'm the only salary piece here. His timeline doesn't fit the rest of this team. They had a rebuild, and now they're rebuilding this rebuild. So that just perpetuates everything. Oh, that's cool that you got 47 picks for Mitchell and Gobert. You've hit on none.
What are you doing with them? Yeah, actually, I take that back. The one that they did get, I don't know if they actually traded for the pick, but Kessler has wound up being good. The problem is that like Danny Ainge doesn't want to play him all the time. Like
Kessler was one of those 5 first-round picks. It was 4 first and Kessler for Gobert because Minnesota just drafted him.
Utah is that Danny Ainge has played so much with DNPs and all these phony injuries that the league actually punished him. They got to a point where they're like, you can't keep doing this.
They know their tanking is so bad, it's painfully obvious. I just don't know what you're doing. This is like the Orlando Magic West, where they, like I mentioned, they rebuilt and they had to tear down that rebuild because that one failed and they're starting again. Yeah, we're going to take Ace Bailey and Clayton, neither of which who wanted to come here.
Bailey had made that was a big controversy up to draft week where Bailey's agent, who I think he's since replaced, did not. They basically refused to work out for Utah because he didn't want to go there, and Utah picked him anyway. But I think he'll wind up playing there. He'll report to camp. I don't think there'll be drama anymore. I think he's actually gonna be out there to prove himself on his rookie deal. He's a super talented player. I saw him at Rutgers with Dylan Harper. He's a very talented player. The other one was Walter Clayton Jr., who was the MOP of the NCAA tournament. Smaller guard, but he can score. So I wonder if he'll get playing time as well.
And he reportedly wanted to go to Miami.
Really?
And didn't want to go to Utah. That was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they had an interview. Somebody had an interview with him. They go, who are like 3 people, dead or alive, you want to have dinner with? And he said Spolstra as one of them. So it was just a dead giveaway.
And the musical chairs is sad. It's to a point where if a player goes to Utah, they're already like thinking about, okay, am I getting bought out? Kevin Love. George Niang, I think, is going to stay. He's been there before in Utah. Kyle Anderson, Joseph Nurkic, Lord knows. I mean, they need a center, so I guess Nurkic
is just third string depth behind Filipowski and Kessler. You have Taylor Hendricks, who should be starting at the 4, and when he should be healthy. Niang,
and they got KJ Martin, which I would assume they're going to use as team option. He has a very late option, but they're going to probably pick it up.
And we mentioned that last year is the problem. You had Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler. They all can't. Markkanen has to play the 3 in all of these. Kessler can only play the 5. Hendricks can only play the 4. So Markkanen has to play the 3. Therefore, Bailey has to be the 2.
Yeah. And because of Markkanen's offensive upside, also Keontae George is a good 3. He's good at getting to the free throw line. So they had some guys that could help with their offense, even though their offense overall was like in the 20s. It was their defense. Their defense was one of the worst in the league, maybe the worst. That was the biggest issue for them. So they have to improve the defense first.
And we have another issue for you, which I'm interested to see how you're going to defend your position on this one, because I think I know which way you're going to go.
Okay.
Straight up 18.5. Didn't change.
So they won 17 games last year. I'm going to go under that.
I thought you were going to take the over. I was prepping myself for it. I was bracing.
I think they really want to go for DeBensa, who, by the way, I don't listen. I don't know where he was originally from. AJ DeBensa, the potential #1 pick. He's playing at BYU. Danny Ainge went to BYU. Like, of course he's going to tank for this guy.
Well, number one, BYU has decided to open up their money. Everybody's having big football NIL money.
Hmm.
BYU said we're just going to give out tons
And
of.
there's other freshman type of players that I'm not thinking about that will be high potential picks. But yeah, it's just another tanktastic year. I mean, this is just I just don't see room for improvement unless Kessler just becomes like a top 10 center in the league. And I like him, but I don't like him that much. Markkinen, to be fair, he played in an off-season FIBA tournament. He looked fantastic. I don't think people ever thought Lauri Markkinen since his All-Star season in Utah have ever thought of him as a bad player. They know how good he
No, they
is.
know he's good. Like I mentioned, they had to. He's literally the only good player on that
It's
team.
just
So of
our
course he's
team's
going to get.
willing to give up stuff for him. That's really what it comes
And
down
the
to.
price was again Chicago Bulls too high. Of you like him? I want first
And
for
the
him.
salary went up when he signed the extension. Right.
The same thing for John Collins. Well, I went to first. Colin
Mhm.
Sexton. I went to first, and they got dumped for. I mean, we had mentioned just recently or 2 teams ago. They had to give a second round pick to get rid of Sexton, who is the better player, to get Nurkic, which doesn't make any sense. But just
And they're at
bef-
the salary floor, which tells me
bef-
that at the deadline, they're going to pick up contracts that they're just going to buy out,
of course.
which gives them
But
an empty roster
before
spot
I
for a
get
two-way.
distracted about BYU, Hugo Gonzalez, the 28th pick to the Celtics, who was on, I believe, Real Madrid and got like 3 minutes a game.
Hmm.
The only reason I knew of his name is because BYU offered him $1 million in NIL money.
Yeah, and they
So,
also that's how they got Igor Demon.
as just gonna say Igor Demin as well. I
Hmm.
didn't. I only because I knew the Hugo Gonzalez number and what he did in Europe. So that's why BYU is they got him because they just said,
Well,
look,
it's
here's
a great coup for them. It's great for their brand.
the Rutgers tried last year and still
Mhm.
finished under 500 with 2 of the top
But I just get the
5
sense that
picks.
they're going to gun for another top spot and try a bite at the apple like they did with Ace Bailey.
Of course,
I think
every,
Ace Bailey is going to get a lot of playing time. I'll
every
just put it
other
that way.
bite to this point has completely failed. So you bring in Austin Ainge to now take over, who, as you had said just a few minutes ago, made the bold decision. I don't care if they don't want to play here. I'm going to get guys, as opposed to Danny Ainge, who just said, "Well, Isaiah Collier was the high school #1 player of the year. He had a terrible year at USC, but USC was so dysfunctional and such a mess. It could just be his system, and every player he got didn't really pan out. So yeah, of course they can take another year and go for a top pick."
They did make one improvement. It looks like they're dumping those ugly yellow jerseys that look like the warehouse and Michael Scott's basketball team in The Office, and they're actually kind of going back to that silvery color scheme with purple that they did with the in
The
the late
purple with the
90s.
mountains. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
with the night,
like.
it looked to me like that's what they're going with. They always do alt jerseys and retro stuff, but it looks like that's the regular look, and I actually, yeah, I kind of prefer it. The yellow just didn't work for me for the Jazz.
But they can afford to take another year. Brooklyn can afford to take another year. Washington, I don't. I'm sort of on the fence if they can. You think they can? Charlotte cannot take another year in stabbing for a top
I think
five
I
pick.
think among the 4, Charlotte's got the best potential to rise. I am still not that hopeful. I think I took the under for them. I just they definitely can. Washington, I only like because of the fact that you can't be awful forever. Among these 4 teams, they've been really bad for the longest. I think eventually they have to have an improvement. You can't bottom out and bottom out until they're in the bottom. They got to go up somewhere. You know, Brooklyn, Brooklyn's gonna might be wind up being the youngest team in the league. Period. By the end of it all, I just who's going to
Uh,
be their oldest player by the end?
who is it currently?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is going to be the youngest team. It was the Thunder for a while, but now the Thunder gotten to a point where they have the experience. They've played together for a while. They're not the youngest team. These are all very young teams, and they're going to stay that way. I also think, to be fair, unless one of these teams owes a pick, which I don't think they do, these are the 4 teams that are going to be fighting it out in the lottery to have the most ping pong balls.
No, okay, I was wrong. There's a couple. 29-year-olds in Haywood Highsmith and Terrence Mann who have been
Mhm.
around, but other than that, yeah, you got
Like,
uh
what let me ask you this, just as a trick question. What teams above this do you think can join them? I would say
who can get worse?
yes.
Oh, I don't want above this bad group is that layer of hell group who I don't even know knows how to tank completely. Would you trust Sacramento to be able to tear it down correctly? No. Would
No.
you Chicago has too much talent to do so. Miami was just there because I put them in the because they're frustrating.
There's only one I can see, and it's Toronto because the ownership just gives up on that core that Masai Ujiri gave all that money to, and they just trade everyone. That's the only one.
But I think they have too much talent.
They do.
There's no we have Markkinen is the star on his team. And who is the second best player on Utah? We don't really have one. Brooklyn, we don't even have a star. MPJ is on the star of that team. Who is their
Mhm.
second best player? They don't have one.
Thomas.
Washington, who is their best player?
Sar, maybe Sar by the
They
end of
don't
it.
have a star. I said who's their star, not who's their star.
But they don't have they don't have a star. I mean, they haven't had one since they traded Beal. You
That's
know,
what
that's
they don't even have one. Charlotte has Ball, and they have a
I think their
budding
biggest
number
stars in
two.
I think their biggest stars in AAU or in college right now. I'm being honest. Like
So
that's
that's
where we're at.
why these teams you need to start hitting on the draft and you need to make your players better. And we know Will Hardy has overachieved. You mentioned Fernandez in Brooklyn has overachieved.
Yeah, Brian Keefe, I'm not as fond of.
Brian Keefe hasn't done it. Charles Lee is an
Charles Lee's been an
interesting.
assistant on championship teams in Boston and Milwaukee. Doesn't mean anything, but he does know how to win. He knows
He
winning
does know how to
mentality.
win. You had people seem to be high on him, although the reports were the team was a joke and all the players were too immature.
Oh well, that goes without saying. I mean, you could see the team and know how immature they are.
But
You know,
you had Utah with the young players, and they seem to be okay. You had Brooklyn and their young players who all seem to be okay. So it's a question of the culture. Has it changed? If Charlotte can change their culture, they are on the fast lane to getting out
yeah,
of
because
this.
I've already said I like the Knuble pick, and I think that can be a linchpin down the road, especially if they get another good pick after that. But that's in 26. We don't know who that's going to be. And I love Brandon Miller. I think Miller has the scoring ability of a Jamal Murray, where he can just be an explosive
Oh, so he
scorer.
could score 42 points, and the next game he'll score 7?
Yes,
Oh,
like
well,
that's
that
the exact kind of player I see in Brandon Miller. But he's talented. He's super talented, and I think they got him in the fold. Whereas all these other ones, I think Washington's got a couple of guys that they're going to keep in the fold years later. They're just so young, nobody knows who they are yet.
all right. For Andrew Reich, I am Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care.